Have you ever imagined a world made up entirely of women? They go out exercising, appearing everywhere without the presence of a single man. Their world is extremely happy and advanced with modern technologies. Instead of living in the city, this society of 140 women chose a rural area to develop their community. Every day, an AI housekeeper handles all household chores, from cooking to checking the health of the residents. With such ideal living conditions, the people here have reached a life expectancy of 150 years. Instead of using money, they only use social points, which are accumulated by following the rules, but deducted if someone misbehaves. A history teacher named Rad is educating the girls about the world's past when men still dominated. They only loved conflict and aggression, which led to wars everywhere. In 2030, North Korea created a virus targeting the US military with the intention of wiping out all men there. Unexpectedly, the virus spread out of control, killing 99% of men worldwide. With no other choice, women had to take power and repair the damages men had caused. Children were born very rarely, and if it was a boy, women would send him to the slums, since men were considered violent and unintelligent, with their lifespan shortened to only about 30 years. To help his students understand, Rad took them to an ancient city where living conditions were terrible, the residence of a group of men, so they could see firsthand. Coincidentally, that day Baron, the leader of the slums, was giving a speech about rising up against women. His speech was interrupted by the arrival of Rad and the girls. The men, enraged, pulled down their pants to humiliate them, mistaking it as a friendly greeting. One girl boldly lifted her skirt in response, which excited the men even more. Terrified, the group rushed back to the bus, but they noticed Mila was missing. They split up to search, and Rad found her staring curiously at a duck, an animal she had never seen before. Just then, both were startled as the duck was killed by a young man named Jera. The two girls screamed, attracting the attention of nearby men, but Jera quickly pulled them away to hide. Unable to resist the beauty of Rad, Jera impulsively kissed her. Shocked, she blew a whistle to sound the alarm, which exposed their location, and both were captured and brought before Baron. He organized a slapping contest, declaring that whoever won would claim the two girls. Jera volunteered, but his opponent was a muscular brute. By sheer luck, Jera dodged a blow and accidentally struck Baron, knocking him unconscious. Amid the chaos, Rad and the girls escaped onto the bus, while Jera fled on foot, having made an enemy of Baron. At that moment, a truck from the high-tech zone arrived to collect batteries. Jera quickly hid inside a battery crate and successfully sneaked aboard. There, he met another young man named Yuli, who was assigned to guard the seeds. In fact, Yuli was one of the few men with the privilege of helping women in the high-tech zone conceive. Since the bus was traveling at high speed, Yuli agreed to drop Jera off at the next station. As they talked, Yuli unknowingly drank a lot of liquor Jera had brought. Became so drunk he fell off the vehicle. Determined to escape Baron's men, Jera put on Yuli's spare uniform and pretended to be the seed guardian. Soon, he arrived at the high-tech zone, where an invisible barrier opened, and a young woman was waiting to welcome him. Jera was amazed to see many girls waving at him. That night, during a live broadcast, Jera bit into the holy apple to swear an oath to father intelligent, healthy children. Eager to begin, he was taken to the reproduction room, where he met an unattractive woman. However, his excitement was crushed when a tube was inserted between his legs to extract his seed. Throughout the process, Rad's image constantly appeared in his mind. Once finished, Jera was sent to a recovery center, where seed guardians received special care from beautiful women. Feeling overwhelmed, Jera stiffened, rushed to the bathroom, but even his act of self-relief was discovered. Meanwhile, at the local court, Rad and Mila were facing a hearing. Mila had told her mother Vera, a powerful woman, about the trip to the slums. Nervous, Rad had confided in her best friend Aya about the kiss with a strange man. Aya appeared sympathetic and promised to keep the secret. At the hearing, Vera tried to pin all the blame on Rad to protect Mila. Refusing to yield, Rad presented evidence showing that it was Mila who had requested the excursion. And everything had been recorded clearly. As the debate grew heated, Aya suddenly stood up, broke her promise, and revealed the story of Rad's kiss in front of everyone. The revelation shocked the entire council and all attendees. Ultimately, the council sentenced Rad to 80 hours of community service for her behavior, while Aya, the betrayer, was rewarded with 20 extra social points. Meanwhile, Yuli, after making his way to the slums, was helped by Jera's grandfather. Together, they went to meet Baron, the leader of the slums, to introduce Yuli as a new member. However, Baron remained suspicious and not easily convinced to accept the stranger. After getting a haircut, Yuli caught the attention of one of the few women living in the slums. Out of jealousy, Baron told the giant brute that Yuli was flirting with his woman. The giant grew angry and challenged Yuli to a slapping contest. The giant opened with an incredibly powerful slap that knocked Yuli down instantly. However, to the crowd's astonishment, Yuli quickly stood back up and retaliated with a devastating slap of his own, flooring the brute. After this victory, Yuli became the new idol of the slum residents. At that time, in the high-tech zone, the young men were taken outside for a walk, where they were instructed about strange rules they had to follow, for example, having to ask permission if they wanted to fart, and even using a glass chamber to do it. While passing a statue worshipped as a goddess, most people stopped to pray. However, Jera, tired of the rules, persuaded a group of young men to go down to the river to have fun. While they played, the others began to notice something unusual about Jera. He even carried a lighter, a forbidden item here. Instead of suspecting Jera's identity, they simply thought it was part of his rebellious personality, and the group continued happily. They even lit a fire to cook fish, but the flames accidentally triggered the fire alarm system, causing an artificial cloud to appear and spray water. When the young men returned to the center after the incident, they were informed of their punishment, a trip to the Patriarchal Museum for re-education. The next day, while Jera was enjoying a massage session, he suddenly discovered that his attendant was none other than Rad, who had been sent there for community service. Jera was extremely flustered by her appearance and pretended to be injured to avoid her. Later, the group of young men were brought to the Patriarchal Museum, where they listened to lectures on the new social rules. They were taught that women were the superior species, while men should accept being ruled, and that all sexual acts were disgusting and unnecessary. Meanwhile, Rad and her grandmother Hoya observed Jera from afar. Intrigued by him, Hoya suggested Rad keep Jera's true identity a secret rather than report him to the authorities. When the group of young men returned to the rehabilitation center, Jera began sharing that everything they were taught was a lie, and that feelings of desire were completely natural. One of the young men, too excited by the idea, demanded Rad take off her clothes. Before the situation could escalate, Jera intervened, chasing the boy away. Rad was grateful for his action but still warned that if he didn't leave, she would be forced to expose his real identity. Back in the slums, Yuli's growing fame began to worry Baron, who feared losing his leadership. Baron ordered his right-hand woman, Krissa, along with a group of men, to get rid of Yuli. They lured him into a food-gathering mission, which was actually a trap. Unexpectedly, Yuli impressed everyone by bringing back a huge amount of supplies. Krissa tried to attack him but failed completely. At that moment, the group encountered a rival gang, but Yuli scared them off in mere seconds. After this, Krissa and the others grew even more fond of Yuli and decided not to eliminate him. Meanwhile, Baron was maintaining a secret affair with Vera. Through this connection, Vera knew everything happening in the slums. When Baron mentioned Yuli, Vera grew suspicious, reviewed the records, and discovered that the real Yuli had been replaced by a man from the slums. She immediately issued a red alert throughout the high-tech zone, revealing Jera's identity. Panicked, Jera tried to escape, but when he reached the border area, an invisible barrier blocked his way. Forced to hide, he unexpectedly encountered Rad again. He begged her for help, reminding her of the times he had saved her. Just then, the authorities closed in, leaving Rad no choice but to side with Jera. Back in the slums, Baron was furious upon hearing that Yuli was still alive and demanded his men explain themselves. But after witnessing Yuli's abilities, they seemed to side with him. Yuli stood up and declared that the slums also deserved democracy. Naturally, Baron refused to give up his power, forcing Yuli to rally the locals to put pressure on him. That night, the entire community participated in an election held in the bathroom. Baron attempted to rig the results, but in the end, he only received a single vote, his own. Krissa won with 18 votes and secretly agreed to be Baron's puppet. Meanwhile, Rad and Jera were trying to escape and sought refuge at Hoya's house. When Vera's assistant arrived to inspect, Hoya quickly hid them in a closet. However, a cat sneezed, giving away their hiding place. Just as Vera's assistant was about to capture all three, Hoya struck her unconscious. She then pulled out her old motorbike and told Jera to use it to break through the invisible barrier, explaining that only objects moving at speeds above 80 km per hour could pass through. As Jera and Rad prepared to escape, Rad's mother, Elena, suddenly discovered them. In a desperate situation, they had no choice but to restrain Elena, allowing Jera and Rad to get away. The two mounted the bike and sped toward the barrier at maximum speed. Fortunately, they succeeded in breaking through. Although the crash destroyed their motorcycle and tore their clothes, both of them had spare outfits prepared. After lighting a fire to rest overnight in the forest, Jera caught a squirrel for breakfast. But when Rad, a strict vegetarian, saw the roasted animal, she was so shocked that she screamed. Her cry attracted the attention of nearby men, forcing them to flee. The pursuers began shooting arrows. And in the chaos, Rad tripped over a broken branch and injured her leg, allowing the hunters to capture them. Jera and Rad were taken back to the slums, where Baron tried to approach Rad. Other men also wanted a chance with her, so Krissa decided to hold a slapping contest, with Rad as the prize for the winner. Meanwhile, Baron lied to Vera, claiming he had not seen the two fugitives. Later, Yuli visited Rad and tried to persuade her that life in the slums wasn't so bad. But after hearing Rad describe the privileges of the high-tech zone, Yuli began to change his mind and decided they should escape together at night. Outside, Krissa organized a vote for a new constitution, announcing only the appealing clauses while concealing the rule that would transfer leadership to Baron. 2 weeks later, everyone eagerly participated and voted in favor, unaware of the hidden scheme. That night, Yuli met Rad, and while waiting for others to fall asleep, he poured her a drink that immediately made her dizzy. While she was disoriented, Yuli tried to take advantage of her, confessing that he did not actually want to leave the slums. When Jera arrived and saw Yuli crying, he learned that Rad had kicked Yuli in the leg to escape. Jera immediately went searching for Rad, while Yuli confronted Baron and Krissa, declaring himself the new leader. After some searching, Jera found Rad sitting by a campfire in the forest. He gently approached her, assuring that he wouldn't do anything she didn't want. Jera shared some fried chicken with her, surprising Rad with its delicious flavor. Suddenly, she speculated that if food could be so enjoyable, then intercourse must be just as exciting, and she decided to try it with Jera. However, just as they were about to begin, Elena and 2 guards appeared and immediately captured them. Jera was shot with a tranquilizer gun. Once back in the high-tech zone, Elena pleaded with Vera to forgive Rad and suggested handing over Jera so Vera could publicly punish him, believing it would boost Vera's political career. Vera agreed without hesitation. The council then held a meeting and decided to execute Jera. When he awoke, Jera found himself strapped to a chair, surrounded by women who injected him with a special serum. They asked him to make his final wish. Jera only asked to say goodbye to Rad. Moved by this request, Rad rushed over and kissed him. However, this was merely an illusion within Jera's drugged mind, as advanced machines monitored his thoughts. His fantasies, including the kiss with Rad, were broadcast on television for everyone to see, as proof of how depraved men were. Meanwhile, Yia approached Rad and showed her Jera's genuine thoughts, as well as the memory of their kiss. This made Rad realize Jera's true feelings for her, and she resolved to save him. She sought out the other seed keepers and persuaded them to join forces. Soon, they stormed the council building, demanding Jera's release. At that moment, Jera was about to receive the second injection. In his mind, he envisioned a glowing wheel determining his fate. The seed keepers, horrified by the council's cruelty, voiced their opposition and threatened to stop producing seeds unless Jera was freed. Vera appeared, arguing that Jera was merely a primate unworthy of their civilization, but no one believed her, especially since Jera's gentle thoughts about Rad reminded many of the ending of Titanic. Not wanting to risk seed production, Vera was forced to release Jera, but only on the condition that someone take responsibility for all his actions in the future. Without hesitation, Rad volunteered, swearing an oath with an apple. Elena also agreed to protect her daughter. Afterward, Rad went to the execution chamber, freed Jera, and took him to a guest house. There, Jera tried to take the opportunity to get closer to Rad, but Rad walked away, not in the mood after everything that had happened. A while later, she returned and kissed Jera, and the two finally allowed their emotions to guide them. After being together, Rad quietly stepped into the bathroom, while Jera, feeling guilty, went in to apologize, but suddenly he woke up and realized it had all been a dream. While he was still confused, Rad and Elena appeared and explained that he had been given a ring containing 300 social points. If he broke the rules, his points would gradually decrease, and when they reached 0, both he and those who guaranteed him would be punished immediately. Jera instantly lost 13 points simply for skipping breakfast and using inappropriate language. That day, Rad and Jera strolled around the high-tech zone together, but Jera was constantly discriminated against for being considered an outsider. They decided to join a soccer match, but Jera's overly competitive spirit clashed with the atmosphere, leading to disagreements with the girls on his team. Meanwhile, Elena decided to run for president of the high-tech zone in the upcoming election. She began her campaign with the seed keepers, offering them many melons and promising to legalize sexual relations if she won. She even revealed her breasts as a guarantee. In the slums, Yuli discovered a letter from Jera explaining that he had escaped with Rad. Furious, Yuli smashed a table and drank to ease his frustration. While playing around in Baron's office, he found a strange lock, broke it, and discovered the ring Baron used to communicate with Vera. Suddenly, the power went out, and everyone turned to Yuli for a solution. Knowing Baron often contacted the high-tech zone with the ring, Yuli tried it and managed to speak with Vera, but she immediately cut the connection. Shortly after, a bee flew by, and Yuli followed it to a hive. Since honey was extremely rare, Yuli decided to take some, despite being stung in the face. That evening, when he met Vera, instead of asking for help restoring electricity to the slums, he requested to be allowed back into the high-tech zone. Meanwhile, while Baron and Krissa were searching for food, they stumbled upon a car and a skeleton holding a gun. After the power was restored, they returned to the slums and showed off the weapon. Soon after, a rival gang arrived to stir trouble. Baron tried to intimidate them with the gun but failed. To keep safe, he let them take Krissa hostage. To boost Jera's reputation among the local women, Elena asked him to help incubate bird eggs. At that moment, everyone received a message to watch the news. They saw Yuli complaining about men's way of life and blaming Jera for getting him lost on the way to the high-tech zone. Jera tried to explain the truth, but the women ignored him and left. Yuli was then welcomed back as a seed keeper, and Vera ordered Rad to take care of him until he recovered. Yuli admitted that he had lied under Vera's pressure, and Rad promised that if he remained honest, Elena would support him. After Rad left, Jera confronted Yuli about his lies, but his shouting caused his social points to drop further. In anger, Jera threw an apple at Yuli. When Jera returned to his apartment, he was shocked to find female council members waiting for him. They accused him of desecrating the apple, a sacred symbol in their society, and declared it blasphemy. A video of the incident was even broadcast nationwide, reducing Jera's social points to 0. Just as the council prepared to expel him, he unexpectedly received 1 point from an anonymous account. At that exact moment, the chicks hatched from the eggs, prompting women everywhere to donate points to thank him. The council had no choice but to leave. Afterward, Jera dressed in what he thought was stylish clothing and tried to flirt with Rad, even gifting her one of his points for her beauty. But Rad scolded him angrily, saying he only ever brought her trouble. Furious, she demanded he stay away and walked off. Heartbroken, Jera left a letter of apology at her door and went to the high-tech zone's border. There, he waited for the right moment, hugged a guard, and stole her device to disable the barrier before escaping. The guard blew her whistle and deployed drones to chase him. While fleeing, Jera was struck by a car and taken to the hospital. At her home, Rad found Jera's farewell letter. Elsewhere, Vera ordered Baron to command his men to attack the high-tech zone. The next day, Jera recovered and was discharged from the hospital. Rad and Elena brought him to Vera's motherhood event, where the next woman to be fertilized would be chosen. When asked about her wish, Rad confessed that she longed to become a mother. During the event, Vera challenged Elena to compete in all. Meanwhile, Rad and Yia went to a secret theater where Hoya screened a film showing how women used to become pregnant in the past. Horrified by how much it resembled torture, Rad quickly left. Jera later suggested that Rad have a child the natural way instead of waiting for the lottery results. But she found the idea disgusting, while Yia was intrigued and suggested that Jera do it with her. Jera looked at Radha as if asking for permission, but she told him that he could do whatever he wanted. So Jera agreed with Yia. At the ceremony, Radha was surprised to learn that she was the lucky one chosen, while Yia tried to recreate what she had seen in the film with Jera. But he felt uncomfortable and walked away. In the end, Jera returned to the event just as Radha was giving her speech. But she stopped when she saw him. Realizing her true feelings, Radha rejected the lottery result and walked toward Jera. Suddenly, Baron and his group of men stormed into the tech district in a truck. They immediately kidnapped Radha and destroyed everything along their path, causing chaos that made people flee. After capturing Elena and Radha, Baron demanded his reward, but all he received was an empty box. Furious, Baron called Vera for an explanation, but Vera coldly told him that he knew too much and had to be eliminated. At that moment, Vera's guards surrounded Baron's group and aimed their guns at them. In a panic, one of the men exploded a bottle of milk to create a distraction so they could escape. Baron held Elena hostage and ran into the mother center, where all the seeds were stored. He intended to use Elena's life as leverage for ransom, but Elena cleverly pointed out that Vera would be pleased to see him fail. Trapped inside the mother center, Baron went mad and began blaming Vera for everything. Taking advantage, Elena offered a deal. She would help him escape if he agreed to reveal all of Vera's secrets to the authorities. Baron accepted. Later, Elena and Baron left the building carrying a box of seeds. When the guards tried to stop them, Baron broke open some capsules to create an opening to escape. Meanwhile, Baron's group captured Hoya and forced her to lead them to her home. After releasing her, they asked for food, but Hoya suddenly pulled out a crossbow and aimed it at them. However, after hearing about their true goal, Hoya decided to cooperate since she also wished to fight for equality. Meanwhile, Radha, who had been captured, was fortunately rescued by Jera. They fled together into a house. But the AI caretaker refused to obey Radha's orders because she and Elena had been stripped of all privileges in the tech district. When they checked the television, they discovered that Vera was blaming Jera for everything, revealing that she was the one behind the chaos. Trapped together, Jera and Radha grew closer, sharing a kiss despite the caretaker's protests. The uprising caused system interference, forcing a reset to factory settings. Taking advantage, Radha quickly re-registered her membership in the tech district, which made the caretaker obey and open the doors for them to escape. At the same time, Baron revealed to Elena the crimes Vera had committed. Elsewhere, Hoya and her new group stormed Vera's home to attack her. But Yuli appeared just in time and single-handedly defeated all of Hoya's allies. Soon after, the guards discovered the location of Elena and Baron, while Jera and Radha also arrived in an old car. After Baron scattered all the seed capsules, he angrily attacked Jera and blamed him for everything. He then tried to escape with Radha and her child. But Radha fought back, causing the car to crash into a swamp. Except for Jera, everyone else was immediately captured. Meanwhile, Vera celebrated her victory by toying with Yuli, while the prisoners were sent to a garden to perform hard labor as punishment. A news broadcast later announced that all the seeds had been destroyed, which devastated Lucius, a seed keeper. In his rage, he attacked Jera, believing him to be the traitor. However, Jera managed to persuade Lucius to side with him by revealing the truth about Vera's secret ties with Baron. Jera also spoke about the invisible barrier, and Lucius unexpectedly revealed that he owned a bicycle. Together, they rode at 80 km per hour and successfully escaped the tech district. The next day, Jera and Lucius met GP, Jera's grandfather, to plan their next move. Lucius called a fellow seedkeeper to update him about Rana's group, while Jera discovered a photo of his grandfather from his school days alongside Hoya. Overjoyed to learn that Hoya was still alive, his grandfather immediately turned on his computer to locate her. Meanwhile, the prisoners were brought to an apple orchard where Vera revealed that their punishment was slavery. Jera, Lucius, and his grandfather approached the area but were blocked by the barrier. By chance, they saw the enemy gang from the slums allowed entry because they brought slaves. Among them was Krissa. Krissa tricked Baron by saying life there was better than in the slums and advised him to escape by hiding inside a garbage container. Trusting Baron's words, he sneaked into one of the garbage containers to escape. When the enemy gang left and stopped their vehicle in the middle of the road, they saw Jera pretending to be a drunken vagrant. Without any suspicion, they captured him and brought him to Katia, a woman who specialized in capturing men and playing with them like pets. Katia then took her, pets, to visit Vera at the apple orchard. While the men were tied up outside, Katia and Vera enjoyed dinner inside. Jera seized the chance to meet Radha and gave her Lucius's ring so she could record evidence of the crimes committed there. That night, during the feast, Radha sneaked into their tent to film. However, the party was interrupted when Yuli recognized Jera by his tattoo. In anger, Vera shoved Jera, accidentally pulling down the curtains and exposing Radha. Both were immediately arrested by the guards, and the ring was confiscated. Even so, a few images from the party had already spread to the central hub. Faced with rising tension, Vera was forced to return to contain the damage. In the tech district, Yia showed the other women the leaked photos of Vera, but Vera quickly defended herself by claiming the images were fabricated. To prove her innocence, both Vera and Yia bit into an apple as a solemn oath. The Supreme Mother then declared that a thorough investigation would take place before any verdict was made. Worried, Vera rushed back to her office to destroy all evidence of her secret parties. However, the Supreme Mother still ordered an investigation of the orchard's surroundings, leaving Vera with no choice but to order the entire garden burned to erase the traces. At that very moment, Greece's earlier lie unintentionally came true. Baron, hidden inside the trash container, successfully escaped. After fleeing, Baron ran through the forest and encountered Jera's grandfather along with Julius in the orchard. Meanwhile, Hoya noticed that Yuli had feelings for Radha, so she signaled for her to flirt with him. Believing it to be genuine, Yuli took Radha into his private tent and revealed that Vera had ordered the apple orchard to be burned. Shortly after, Jera suddenly attacked Yuli and knocked him unconscious. At the same time, the enemy gang from the slums found Jera and Radha. They were about to punish the two. But before they could act, Baron's garbage truck suddenly appeared, overpowering them and giving the prisoners a chance to free themselves. At that moment, Vera pressed a button that wiped out the entire orchard in an instant. Not long after, Vera was elected as the new chairwoman of the tech district. However, during the inauguration ceremony, a series of unexpected advertisements appeared, making Vera realize she had been captured and connected to a mind-reading machine. The Supreme Mother had never trusted Vera and quickly had her arrested as soon as she stepped into the office. The button Vera had pressed earlier had in fact never activated, and the prisoners had already escaped safely. Elena was then elected as the new chairwoman, and at last, Jera and Rada had the chance to share their very first moments together. The film ends here. Thank you for watching, and see you again in the next movies.